Good morning, Gamecocks. I'm Chloe Findlay.
And I'm Meagan Daukshus. Chloe and I are here every week giving you a recap on the news and happenings on the USC campus and around Columbia. This week, we'll introduce you to a student small business owner.
We've also got the scoop on college game day in Columbia for the LSU game.
But first, we've got a recap on the State of the University address given earlier this week.
We hope to get your weekend started in the right direction. Welcome back to Good Morning Gamecocks. Good morning, Gamecocks. I'm Chloe Findlay.
And I'm Meagan Daukshus.
In national news, it's Super Bowl weekend.
The goldfish, I am convinced, have different tastes to them.
I'm convinced they don't. Oh, that's gotta be green. That's gross.
Nice job, Meagan.
Let's go.
Let's go. All right. Good morning, Meagan.
Good morning, Chloe.
Welcome back to the studio.
I'm so excited to be back.
Yes.
I mean, we had a long summer of podcasts and working with our producers on reporting that. It was such a good time, but we're back in the studio, and it feels good to be back home.
Yes, there's no place like home, is there?
Well, Gamecocks, we've got a few stories to kick off your weekend, starting with a recap of USC's President Amiridis State of the University address.
Yeah, so this past Wednesday, President Amiridis gave the annual State of the University address in which he talked about many university accomplishments, including awards and grants offered to faculty and students, and the increase in enrollment numbers. However, possibly the most important for students, he discussed issues we have been talking about all year: parking, housing, and the condition of some of our academic buildings. So, some notable things to talk about. McBride is finally getting an update.
I heard about this.
Well-deserved update. First built in 1955.
It's much in need of,
Yes.
of a redevelopment.
Yes.
I've never been there. I don't know what it looks like, but even just from the outside, you can tell.
Yeah.
That it's
You don't even need to go.
crumbling.
You don't even need to go to the building to understand the dilapidated state.
Yeah.
But it's getting an update, and it seems like, based on the language President Amiridis was using in his speech, this would be the first major renovation that it has seen since it was built.
That's good. I mean, it's good that it's getting a renovation, but like, what if they just knock the whole thing down and rebuild it? Because
That's a good point too. I mean, it is.
how are they going to clean it up that much? I'm
I don't-
interested to see.
I'm not sure. I'm interested to see it too. It is basically in the heart of our campus, right near the Russell House patio. So it's a good location.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
we'll see what they do with that.
Well, what else is getting renovated? I know there's a
Yeah,
lot going
of
on.
course. So Thomas Cooper is also getting renovated. This is interesting. They're going to get rid of some of the bookshelves to have more collaborative study spaces for students. Amiridis said in his speech that they wouldn't get rid of any of the books, that there would be this other collection area that would hold them. However, I had a professor last semester that was saying to take the books home because they were going to get rid of them. So I don't exactly know what's going to happen there.
So we're like students just like leaving with the books and like
Pretty
not
much.
picking them up?
So
Okay.
that was that was a language class, and she was saying
Okay.
that some of the language books are going to basically just be thrown out if students don't take them, which is interesting.
That's interesting. I think we do have such a large database now online that the university provides us with, so we're not going and looking through the books for our research anymore, and also a lot of those books can be outdated. Some of them are definitely good, like historical things, references to have, but I think let's take some of those bookshelves out,
Yeah.
expand T-Coop, because we know how crowded it can get on finals week, and it's insane.
Yes, I'm really hoping for another fourth floor. Fourth floor is very collaborative, big open spaces,
Yeah.
modern spaces. It makes you feel good when you walk in there. So I'm hoping for another one of those,
That'd be nice.
ideally.
Personally, my favorite is the top floor with the little right by the windows. You can sit and look out and watch everyone walk by a T-Coop fountain.
That's pretty cool,
That's
too.
my favorite spot. But
That's pretty cool too.
yeah.
Back to parking, the Park USC app. This was actually one of the first big changes to campus that he announced. So this was at the very start of his speech. We have talked about it before on this show. Delaney was talking about it during the podcast series.
Yep.
But Park USC helps students find available spots in surface lots. So it doesn't really help with parking in garages, which is arguably where most of our students park.
Yeah.
But you know, at least it's a start.
Yeah, it's a start to something. I think this is going to help out people find some spots. I mean, then again, I think the problem is still there's just not enough space on campus for everyone to.
Yeah.
So
And President Amiridis said in his speech that parking has been a problem for 5 decades on the campus.
I'm sure that parking is a problem on every college campus. It's never going to be perfect, especially us here in a city.
Yes.
In a small city, and luckily we're in a small city where we have that extra space of street parking and local business-owned parking lots that aren't owned by USC that you still have the option to get a pass through that business's lot. So there's still other options. I think people just think it's easier to get parking through USC.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to be in the main area and you want to park in Bull Street Garage. It's just the most convenient spot. There's only so many spots in that garage, though.
Yeah. They're also, speaking of garage, they're developing an automated parking navigation system, but just for Bull Street Garage.
Okay.
So it's not going to be a garage-wide improvement, but Bull Street, which is the most central one, maybe the most used one, it helps guide students to open parking spots in the garage.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, and we see Pendleton Street Garage used the most. I think it's good. I'd like to see it in Pendleton too, because I know that's crazy, and we also have a lot of professors parking in the Pendleton Garage, so also making their lives easier. We're not the only ones affected by it, so are they.
Yes.
So are every other worker on this campus. So I'm looking forward to seeing some improvements being made, and hopefully throughout the years, they keep working on it.
I think all Columbia drivers are looking for some improvements in the parking aspect.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But some other fun things that the president talked about in his university address. In just a year, over $2.5 million worth of scholarships have been awarded through the South Carolina internship program. Scholarships of $3,000 have been given out to students in internships in high demand departments, but unluckily for us, we are both Northerners, but nearly 70% of those awarded with a scholarship were from South Carolina.
But I mean, I still is great to see it, and our producer here had also received something from that program, which is awesome. So it's really helping everyone out there on campus.
Oh yeah.
And I like seeing a program like this because sometimes that extra help in that scholarship is so important.
Yes.
Getting a degree is not cheap. And it's great to see that he's really promoting that education and trying to make it affordable for some.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, he had to mention the success of our athletic teams the past year, because who couldn't?
I know.
Who couldn't? Still riding high on all of that women's national championship trophy coming to Columbia.
Yeah, and the women's basketball team was just at the White House.
Yes, yeah, I did see that. They were just there this week.
Yep, this week. That was great to see. So now that they're back in campus, I actually... Kind of funny story, I passed Chloe Kitts on my way to class every morning. So I saw her back this Thursday, yesterday, and I was like, oh wow, that's so funny. There she is. I'm like, I want to be like, hey girl, I want to be friends with her. But she's awesome. And it's great to see that they were invited to the White House to talk about that, and yeah. Yeah,
let's see if we can do it again this season. Maybe we'll get a streak going.
I'm hoping.
We're doing okay in football so far.
Yeah.
Maybe it will carry over to basketball. We'll see.
I'm looking forward to it. We got a lot of we got some good things going for the university this year. I mean, new parking, new buildings coming up, winning streaks. I like to see it.
Me too.
I like to see it. Well, you know what else is really exciting that we're going to see coming to Columbia?
What?
Which I love as a beach and shore girly. The beach is coming to Columbia, South Carolina.
We're inland though, so how's that gonna work?
So basically, there's this company based in Florida called Crystal Lagoons. It finally received its permit approval to start a plan for a 3-acre lagoon in Oak Hills, right outside Columbia. So it's this 3-acre lagoon, man-made pond basically, and it's gonna be bright blue water, it's crystal clear, and there's a lot to it. I mean, there's a lot going into it. It's awesome. It's right next to the Oak Hills Golf Course, if you know where that is. It's actually connected with that property, and everything that they're putting out is spanned across 6 acres.
Wow.
So it's a big development. It's definitely going to take a few years or more.
Oh, yeah.
But the beach is coming. So it's basically this big blue lagoon, and around it there will be so many other things, like 2,400 lots of townhomes, tennis courts, child areas, a park, retail areas, a luxury hotel, wedding pavilion.
Oh, wow.
And then that's just around the area. Around the lagoon, there's also waterfront restaurants. They're going to have water sport rentals. I know the lagoon is built to have a In the pictures they show is like a bar, like one of those like floating bars in the middle of the water.
Yeah.
So super cool. They're basically building this huge resort spot to come travel to and get away for the weekend in Oak Hills. But also it's these townhomes. So it's gonna be a different community of like guests, visitors in town, but also people just living there.
That's
or
interesting.
Owning a condo before coming in the summer or something.
That's interesting. It's like an elevated luxury pool community.
Yeah, but 3 acres of lagoon.
Huh.
And it's cool. And this company has made done this before in different areas. There's one down in Florida they've already made. So super cool to see it. I'm shocked that I never expected something like this to come to the state of South Carolina, let alone the Midlands area.
Yeah.
And I think it's really going to open up a new group of tourists coming to the town and to the area, which is awesome because, go up 30 minutes up the road to the Oak Hills Lagoon, but also, hey, come down into Columbia, come to Soda City, come walk around campus. So I think it's going to be really good for all the surrounding towns as well.
Yeah, it seems like a nice little weekend getaway maybe. But also condos, great place to live. I wouldn't complain if I got to live next to a lagoon.
I know, it must be gorgeous. But I don't know how to feel about living with that many tourists around. I mean, granted,
You live in
that in the summer
Yeah.
in New Jersey, but it's different. You're right there. So you're going to get a drink at the bar with your friends, and you run into people, they're all tourists. They're not your local neighbors, It's a weird vibe, but
Yeah, but arguably, aren't we all tourists here?
we are.
We're not from Columbia.
We're not from
So I
Columbia.
guess you could consider us tourists.
Yeah.
So,
But I'm super excited to see this coming. I think it's going to be.
yeah, I'm definitely going to check it
I
out.
don't know how long it may take, but once it's open, listen, I'll come back to Columbia and I will be vacationing there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We hope your morning is off to a great start. After the break, we're welcoming some special guests to the show. Tell us more about College GameDay in Columbia. So stay tuned. Welcome back. Tomorrow morning game day is going to be kind of interesting here in Columbia. For the first time in 10 years, ESPN's College Game Day is live from Gamecock Park. That's pretty exciting for the Gamecocks, and we're welcoming Spencer Ball and JP Barry from SGTV's Ball Don't Lie to tell us more. Good morning, guys.
Hey, yeah, no, pleasure to be here. It is an early morning, but we're getting a little bit used to that over there in the senior semester. But yeah, me and Spencer, this is fun.
This is definitely in our wheelhouse, so it makes sense you guys brought us over. Glad to be here. A reunion of arguably the two greatest shows in SGTV.
Yeah,
We
you
do
heard
what
it
we
here
can.
first. But why has it taken so long for game day to come to our city for the Gamecocks?
Well, we'll start with 2 words: Will Muschamp. Ever since Steve Spurrier left, the Gamecock program has been kind of peaks and valleys, with the peaks being, of course, glorious Outback Bowl victories and the lows being real low. But they haven't really had any sort of program continuity that leads to College Game Day coming to town until Shane Beamer here in year 4. Public perception is starting to turn a little bit. I think it really started in the back half of season
2022 for
yeah,
sure.
when they
Yep.
dropped a bomb on Tennessee and Clemson in back-to-back games. I think he's kind of bringing back that mystique of the voodoo Gamecock. Like, you come to Williams-Brice and you're not going to
black magic,
you're not leaving without a
yeah.
fight, something like that, which they didn't have for a very long time.
I think also there was a chance, I think, for it to come in one of the earlier Beamer years, especially towards the end of that 2022 season. But then we, go lose a game to Mizzou on the road. It seemed like we were one step short of maybe securing a game day bid. But now for the first time, I think, under Beamer have started on the right foot. We're 2-0. A lot of the times we're a bit of a second half team. So now getting our momentum under ourselves and, just keep going forward. So I think it's going to be super fun, and I think it's a great decision to finally switch it up and bring it back to Columbia. And if you look at the events, who's planned on coming and how many people are going to be there, I think it makes a lot of sense, and it should be shaping up to be a real good show.
Now, we had College Game Day come to our UNC game last year. Obviously, that was not in Columbia. That was up in Charlotte. How is it going to be different of an experience now?
Well, it's always different when it's at an actual college event. Usually they do it out on the Horseshoe, but since it's a noon kickoff, it's going to be out in Gamecock Park across the street. But that's still, very close to campus. It's close to Bojangles, which is very important for everyone involved. But it just, to steal from a bunch of commercials, it just means more when it's at an actual college stadium, college students, college fans, everybody coming together in this one town for a big game as opposed to playing at a big NFL stadium. And you get stuff like Dawn Staley coming to be the guest picker. You get Darius Rucker coming to perform. You get, the band and all that. And it really feels like a celebration of that hosting team's entire existence.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the Charlotte game was at a neutral site, so there was a bunch of UNC fans there as well. So this is going to be solely the Gamecocks. I mean, over 20,000 student tickets requested. And, something interesting, I think it's the first time it's being held at Gamecock Park, unless I'm mistaken, because it's usually on the Horseshoe. But Gamecock Park offers something the Horseshoe doesn't. It's just a huge, wide open space, and the Gamecock Walk is probably going to go right through the heart of it. So I think it's going to be super interesting to see how it all plays out and how they're able to spread out and do a bunch of things at once. Whereas the Horseshoe, they kind of set up the stage, and it's just kind of one thing. I think there's just going to be a big mass of bodies out there.
Yeah, and GameDay was originally slated or expected to head to Lexington, Kentucky today, but obviously we beat them last week. So how do you guys feel about that victory?
Well, I mean, it was really important. The Gamecocks were just 2-10 all time on the road under Shane Beamer. They had struggled in SEC openers. They had struggled in games that you really kind of, where they should win. And in every phase of the game, they just kind of demolished them. I mean, Kentucky completed 6 passes. So
Brock Vandegrift's QBR was under 5, and that's
the normal score is 90-something.
Yeah, I mean, me and JP could have done about the same job out there, slinging the rock. But so whenever that happens, I mean, there's no way they could go to Lexington. I know a bunch of their fans are a little upset because they're hosting Georgia, but if we can beat them by 25, Georgia might go in there and beat them by 70, and they might have to shorten the fourth quarter like they did last night for a game. So I think it's a great decision, but I tell you what, me and JP thought the Gamecocks would kind of get it together, and we both predicted them to beat Kentucky, but I don't think either of us predicted it to look like what it did last week.
Yeah, and everybody knows, Dylan Stewart, of course, the true freshman who is just turning heads all across the country, and that kind of gets into the point of, what does people like ESPN and beyond think about South Carolina, and it's really starting to turn. You had Paul Feinbaum calling it a puzzling decision to bring GameDay here, but Kirk Herbstreit's been on record calling this one of the greatest places to play in the country. And you get the top-ranked recruit Dylan Stewart to commit. You start getting these transfer portal guys, these highly touted like Rocket Sanders from Arkansas, in-conference transfers, stuff like that. And I think it speaks to just kind of the national buzz around South Carolina because, I mean, everyone loves Sandstorm. Everybody loves, the towels waving, but, that doesn't mean anything if you're not getting the results on the field. The results on the field are starting to come, and that's leading to results on TV in terms of ratings.
I also think it's a super fun program. I think that helps, they're not afraid to lean into the social media side to, generate that buzz, but especially when they're winning on the field, those two go hand in hand, and they're just generating a lot of interest in the program. There's going to be, of course, it's a huge game on the field. It's a huge recruiting game. I mean, there are tons of people visiting Williams-Brice this weekend, not only prospective players who might be younger kids, but also, I mean, bunch of good high school recruits. So this is it's a huge game for sure.
And so do you think that, what ESPN is going to think about the Gamecocks, do you think they're going to pick us to win in this LSU game? I know they do the picks. Do you think because we're on home turf, they have a little bit more hope in us this time and after this past weekend's win?
The last time they were here, I believe Corso did pick, he put on Cocky's head for those unfamiliar. Lee Corso, kind of the lead guy of GameDay, will always put on the mascot head of whatever team he picks. And he has a pretty big affinity for South Carolina. I mean,
he's holding Sir Big Spur in one of them.
He's held Sir Big Spur. He's done this with the beak, and he always has a lot of fun with it. Pat McAfee picked us to beat Kentucky last week, as did Michael Phelps, South Carolina legend. But everybody else, Desmond Howard, Kirk Herbstreit. Kirk Herbstreit can't pick because he's actually calling the game, so they try to avoid a conflict of interest.
Yeah,
there. But I think they like to ride with kind of the underdog, the team with momentum, and people just don't really like LSU. They don't like Brian Kelly, and Desmond Howard I know doesn't like Brian Kelly. So I think they'll, especially as the show builds up, with the Darius Rucker, with the Gamecock Walk, then they'll move it into Williams-Brice, so they'll kind of be that building cauldron of noise as people fill in. I think they'll ride the home wave a little bit.
I think you're right. Usually it's not unanimous, so I'd expect maybe someone to go with LSU. But again, LSU struggled with a Nicholls State last week after losing to USC in week 1. And then we're on a 2-game win streak, really bounced back after the Old Dominion game. You know, we've got the hot hand. I think the game day atmosphere might also get them to pick South Carolina because this could be one of the rowdiest games in recent memory, I think, without a doubt. So it should be a lot of fun, but I think it'd be hard to pick against the Gamecocks.
So now we've talked about what you think the game day crew is going to pick, but to wrap us up, who do you guys think are going to win the game?
Well, you know, like you said, they struggled with Nicholls State. They really couldn't run the ball. LSU has suffered injuries to their star running back and their star defensive tackle. They're a team that doesn't historically, under Brian Kelly, respond well to adversity, especially when stuff like that starts piling up.
And he knows as a Notre Dame fan.
Yeah, Grant Nussmeier is, you know, he's just like Lenore Sellers. He's a guy starting in college for the first time, and he's going on the road to an environment like this. He's going to be facing one of the best front sevens and pass rushes in all of college football so far. And I don't think it's too much of a stretch to pick the Gamecocks, especially against an LSU run defense that didn't really play too well in their last 2 games. I think that's something we could see Rocket Sanders really play well at Juju McDowell, and even the legs of Lenore Sellers. So I think South Carolina ekes it out. I don't think it's going to be some big, bombastic blowout victory, but I do think South Carolina will win.
I'm also going with the Gamecocks. I mean, never a doubt. But, you know, it's going to be, I think, just a real slugfest out there. LSU has a really good offensive line to match our front 7. Like Will Campbell, I think him and Dylan Stewart is going to be, you know, a great matchup for the football sickos watching that one out there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I think the Gamecocks are going to have to make one or two of those statement plays, but getting Sellers comfortable and just, you know, really not putting yourself in a hole. I think that's what South Carolina has a tendency to do, kind of based on the previous years. So starting early, maybe scoring on their first couple drives, that'd be huge for them. But I think the Gamecocks get it done.
I got my money on South Carolina, too.
Me as well. I do. Well, I appreciate y'all joining us on Good Morning Gamecocks. Be sure to check their show out, Ball Don't Lie, later today to hear a little bit more into college game day and this weekend's game. After the break, Chloe and I will be back to introduce you to a student small business owner. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back. We're here with Matthew Tieng, owner of Iced Tea Vintage. Iced Tea Vintage specializes in reselling vintage Gamecock gear and other vintage clothing finds. Welcome, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are yourself?
We're good.
Thank you so much for having me
Yeah,
today.
of course.
So we want to know, how did you get into this vintage clothes reselling business?
Yeah, so originally I've always worn like the old 90s kind of designs with tobacco tees, beer tees, and I was just buying a whole lot. And one of my friends out in Charlotte was the one who was selling it to me, and it got to a point where I had no room in my closet, and I started to have to sell some of the clothes in my closet. So ended up grabbing a rack, setting up some clothes out at one of the smaller markets, and the rest is history from there.
So what about like vintage? Like, is there is it like the search of finding it like fun for you? Like, what is it?
Yeah, for me, I know a lot of it's the search. There's always going to be something that I'm looking for, and when I find that one thing, may it be for 50 cents or $20, it's always about how I come across it. That's the most exciting part, and being able to find stuff for other people is what has kept me doing vintage clothing.
So you brought some stuff here. I want to see what you got, because these are your most recent finds,
These
right?
are the finds I've had in the past couple weeks, and you're gonna go up in the restock. So up first we have this black little spotlight tee, little Gamecocks piece. Very cool design. It's really cool being able to find stuff that you've never really seen before. And up next we got this number 99, an 80s style practice jersey. It's a little crop fit with big old baggy sleeves.
Now, as you're showing us these, are these all Gamecock gear that you sell?
Right now I'm working on a big collection of just strictly Gamecock. Being in Columbia, being a student here has been really eye-opening and allowed me to focus on one specific target market. And being a vendor at Soda City, I felt like selling only Gamecock was the most fitting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is this a Simpson here on this
Yeah,
shirt?
this is a Bart Simpson. This is a really cool one. You know, I've never seen tees like this.
That is awesome.
It's something that's really cool to me. I feel like for me, a lot of the Looney Tunes, like Disney character, random cartoon characters, a lot of Tasmanian Devil, South Carolina tees. Those things are some of the coolest things to find because you just don't really see them that often.
Are they, so shirts like that, are they, you think, like, were like homemade graphic, like not many of them were sold, like they're like original, like only one of them?
I feel like they are more of, if they don't have the copyright on them, then they're definitely for sure like bootlegs. Someone made them in their garage, went to a football game, sold them out of the back of their car, and those tees, as fake as they are, they're some of the coolest to collect because there's very few out there. You know, we're almost like how they were made just in some random dude's garage, and he just sold them out in the parking lots.
That's funny.
Talking about interesting shirts, what is the craziest, funniest, most interesting piece that you have in your collection?
Oh, one of my personal favorites. I pulled it from the bins around 4 or 5 months ago. It's this 1991 Lollapalooza, and one of the artists that was headlining for Lollapalooza that year was a rapper named Ice-T, and that's one of my favorite pieces in my entire collection because I'm Ice-T vintage, and having a big lettering that just says Ice-T 1991 Lollapalooza is one of the craziest, like, most insane finds I think I've ever had.
Well, while we're talking about the name Ice-T, how did you decide to come up with that as your business name?
Yeah, so I'm in a fraternity here at campus, and in that fraternity everyone's called me Matty Ice, and I was really thinking about what my name should be. I wanted to choose something super unique, super that was like on point with what I was doing, and I knew that I was going to get into pants, like selling vintage pants, just because the whole sizing issue. They come in so many different sizes. I just couldn't really keep track with all that. So I knew that I was mainly going to be selling T-shirts. So that's where the Ice-T came from. So the ice part is from my nickname, Matty Ice, and mainly selling T-shirts, and it's just kind of a play on words. And that's kind of how the name came up to be, and came up with a cool logo for it. And it's been a journey since.
So it seems like you put a lot of work into this business, as you should. How do you balance doing this and being in a fraternity and dealing with classes and other clubs?
Yeah, so when I first started Ice-T Vintage, one of the big things I wanted to focus on was how many of the things am I learning in class? I'm a finance and marketing major, so business student. How many of these things that I'm learning in class can apply to a real world business? How much of this information can I use in my own personal business? So being able to learn in class all the different things with finance and marketing has helped me out a ton, because it's almost like me focusing on my business never really stops. It's these things I'm learning in class, I'm gonna turn around and see if I can implement it in my own business. And with the fraternity and balancing all of this, it's been nice because I've been able to focus on finding things for them, for guys in my fraternity. They love to buy off me, and I know that they've gotten tons of T-shirts off me, done a bunch of game day fits for that. So to me, it hasn't been too difficult to really balance working on my business and school and fraternity, and I was able to focus a lot on it while I was working an internship this summer as well. So it's been nice.
That's awesome. So obviously you're a senior, you're graduating soon. Are you planning on continuing bringing this business with you wherever you go after you graduate?
Yeah, so that's been always a topic of discussion with me, my family, and my teachers and friends, is what am I going to do with Ice-T Vintage once I graduate? And at first, my decision was I'm going to let Ice-T Vintage die with me once I graduate. I've always seen like people hand down their business to someone younger, but it's just not the same. Like, I'm the face of Ice-T Vintage. Everyone knows me as Ice-T Vintage. So for me to give it to someone else, it just wouldn't make the right sense. There was ideas of when I first started classes back up that I'm going to scale down and try to keep it as more of a side gig rather than a main source of income. And after talking to a bunch of my teachers, they basically told me that's a stupid decision. Why scale down when you already have your name out there? You've scaled up. You've built this business. Why scale down when you could continue to scale it up, open up a brick and mortar in Columbia, hire employees, and that will allow me to focus on hire a couple managers, and that will allow me to focus on my full-time job and get passive income through this brick and mortar store. But really, I haven't made a full decision yet of what I'm going to do once I graduate. I know it's going to be coming up soon.
Yeah, you got some time left.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, even if you might be scaling down, you do still have a collection. So where can students and members of the Columbia community find you to get some of your t-shirts?
Yeah, so I'm going to be out in Soda City every Saturday. I'm going to try to make it every Saturday. Granted, there's a couple game days I do want to make sure I go to, especially this weekend. I originally planned on doing Soda City this weekend and just skipping the noon game with kind of how the performance was against ODU, and I was thinking, trying to weigh my schedule out there. And now with College Game Day coming in town this weekend, I'll be missing this weekend for Soda City, but I'll try to make it as much as I can to a lot of these Soda City events and bring out this crazy Gamecock collection that I've been working on for the past 6 months. So.
That's awesome. Your stuff's so cool. I'm like,
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see y'all at Soda City this year and take a look into your
I
collection.
hope to see all of y'all out there.
Yeah. Well, you have anything else for Matt?
No, I appreciate you coming out
Yeah.
to the show. Appreciate you showing us your collection, especially this Bart Simpson one.
I
That's
love it.
definitely got to
Yeah,
be.
that one's crazy.
It's amazing. Megan and I will be back after the break with a fun football fact to kick off your weekend. Stay close.
All right, welcome back, guys. So we got a little fun fact for you. Coming into tomorrow's exciting football game, we're going to lead you with a Gamecock football history fact that the younger Gamecocks especially might not know. So there's this phrase from the 80s that everyone used to say, if it ain't swaying, we ain't playing, and they would yell it before the band played Louie Louie. An iconic song that Gamecocks love to hear the band play, but why is it if we ain't swaying, we ain't playing? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, I would really like to know.
So the student section used to sit where current student upper deck sits right now. So that was just the whole student section.
Yep.
And the way the stadium is built, so it doesn't fall apart and crumble, it kind of shakes and sways back and forth when it is moving. They would get so rowdy up there that they would make the upper deck sway, and you would be able to feel it while you're standing or sitting up there.
No way.
Which is terrifying. So that's where the phrase "is ain't swaying, we ain't playing" came from. And
Oh my goodness. Okay.
yeah.
I mean, that's interesting. I feel like if I was there, I would be very frightened.
Yeah, I don't know how it'd feel. I've never been to the upper deck before, obviously, since I'm with the marching band. We are only allowed in a certain area, but I want to know if it still sways. I'm assuming the structure has obviously been there forever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the way buildings are built. I mean, have you ever been in like a mall? You feel the ground shake a bit, but it's just so high up and you're like not enclosed, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'll have to ask some. I've never been in the upper section.
Okay.
So I'll have to ask some of my friends who have been to maybe try to get it to sway this week.
Oh, it better be swaying. If it's not swaying, we ain't playing.
That's true.
It
That is
better
true.
be. And with that 20,000 ticket requests, we know that the upper deck is going to
Full.
be packed in full,
Yes.
along with the cockpit. So I think the stadium's going to be swaying. We got College Game Day coming in town. I think it's about to be a really, really hype game. And you know how I mentioned that if it ain't swaying, we ain't playing, they say it before Louie Louie. Well, I can say after some band practice last night, I will say we might be hearing some Louie Louie tomorrow
Okay.
during the game.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I know we'll probably have a lot of alumni coming in for town for this game. Big deal. I think they're going to like hearing that song.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
But we'd love to keep talking to you guys, but we got to get ready for game day.
we do. It's time to get ready.
time to
We're
go.
decked out in a little garnet black, white moment. So we got to go change into our Gamecock football gear because I got to prep up for tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Get painting our signs and everything.
Yes.
So
yes.
with that, we wrap up Good Morning Gamecocks for today, September 13th, 2024.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and Facebook at SGTV at USC.
To keep up with all of our content, be sure to also visit us online at sgtv@usc.com. For SGTV, I'm Meagan Daukshus.
And I'm Chloe Findlay. From all of us here at SGTV, have a great weekend, Carolina, forever to be.
Yay! First show done!